Today I have the pleasure of Laurence Stone. Good morning to you, Laurence.
Hi, Julian. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's good to see you and good to catch up with you again. Just going to let the audience know you are a West Sussex businessman. You're a COVID-19 survivor. I've never said that in an intro, but there's a relevance to why I said that.
Yeah.
An author and a research champion whose remarkable recovery story has inspired countless others facing similar health challenges. And the reason I mention that, you have we're going to be exploring your incredible story of survival against probably impossible odds from being one of the first COVID patients even put induced coma in the UK, spending 29 days unconscious in bed number one, to awakening to with a broken body and finding the resilience to fight his way back to cycling again. And so we're going to dive into that story and understand, what I suppose what you've learned from that and how you got through things like that, because it's pretty dramatic and pretty tough, certainly at the very start of it all. And I suppose the first thing I'd say, Laurence, is I suppose take us back to March 2020, where you were fit, you were active businessman, you were traveling the world. What were the first signs that something was seriously wrong?
First signs, I'd just come back from doing a lot of travel in the Middle East and in Africa. I think that was around about sort of February time. And it was during that sort of mid-March period, just went out for a walk with the wife and the dogs up on the Downs, which is very close to where we live. And I just really struggled to do what normally I would, bash out in an hour or so. And from that point on, I just felt sort of progressively off key and quite quickly ended up in bed thinking I've got a bad cold or a bit of a flu. And the signs were not good. So that I went down fairly rapidly. And my wife ended up calling 111. And I ended up being taken away in an ambulance straight to Worthing Hospital. Again, I just thought it would be a couple of days and I'd be home again once I sorted out my breathing difficulties. But as you know, that wasn't the case. I was finding it harder and harder to actually get any oxygen into me. And so various contraptions were used to try and force oxygen into your body, but my lungs just weren't operating, and the oxygen saturation was dropping below sort of 60%, where it's supposed to be up at about 98. And then phone was taken away from me, and then I was put into an induced coma. And the next time I was able to look at my phone and sort of operate it, the date on that phone was the 4th of May. So the last time I looked at my phone, it was 31st of March. So that was a lot of blank spaces for me to try and work out, where I'd been and what had happened. So that's what I was sort of dealing with, if you like.
It's quite incredible. And it happened so quickly. I mean, you went from sort of not feeling so great, then straight into hospital, then into an induced coma. And that's incredibly dramatic, isn't it? And obviously it really had an impact on you, this virus, didn't it?
Completely, yeah. Not me for 6. I mean, I think the entire NHS were unsure how to treat this because there was no known cure for it. They just had to throw everything at it. So I know in those 29 days they were fighting hard to keep me and others alive. And in those 47 days that I was in Worthing Hospital, and when I eventually came out, I know that around about 150 people didn't make it out alive. So all the consequences of that, I still wasn't really myself when I got home. I was just that keen to get away from hospital. I kind of, blagged my way out of hospital to get home. And then that's when I realized that the hard work was going to really start, because getting back here, you're not surrounded by medical professionals, just my wife and my daughter. But then that's where the real mental toughness, became apparent that I had to call on that, work out what I was going to do. Because I was literally a shadow of my former self, if you like, in terms of my health and well-being. And, before you get discharged from hospital, you're approached by many different specialists, and many times the mental health is discussed and PTSD is discussed, and they do lots of different tests on you so you can do cognitive tests, reasoning tests, all that sort of stuff to make sure that they think you're okay. But it's not until you're home and you see this long list of what's not right with you. And, for me, I was still in massive denial about that whole period of time where I was in slumber, if you like. And
that must have been weird to be. I mean, obviously, I've been asleep for anaesthetic for for an operation and stuff like that. For like whatever 3 or 4 hours, that sort of stuff. But to be in an induced coma for, was it 29 days? Was it
29 days? Yeah, not all of it on the first part. I think I was intubated, so tube going down your mouth into your lungs. And at a certain point, they decided they wanted to get me into a situation where I had a tracheotomy done, so a tube going into your throat. Wow. Because I think the whole mouth area was pretty knackered, if I want to use a expression, because obviously they were doing this procedure called proning, where they'd seen in Italy that they were getting some success with patients by moving them from their back onto their front, leaving them there for several hours, so the gas exchanges would occur in your lungs and the oxygen would start to do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So I think in one period of 3 or 4 days, I was prone somewhere in the region of 6 to 7, maybe more times. And that takes a team of 6 or 7 people, because you're in a coma, but they have to paralyze you so that you don't suddenly jerk or involuntarily move and rip out a line that's in your neck or in your wrists or whatever. So I think the body took a massive toll in being moved around. So yeah, when I eventually did get home, there was, like I say, a long list of things that were not right. I had a thing called a drop foot, so my left leg from my knee down to my toes was sort of numb. I couldn't really make my foot work properly. I had a horrendous lisp from where the my mouth and shoved my tongue to one side. One of my vocal cords had collapsed.
Goodness me.
I used to weigh 85 kilos. When I came out of hospital, I was just over 60, about 62 kilos. So I lost all my muscle mass. So my poor old family didn't really recognize me, and I didn't recognize me. If I looked at myself in the mirror, I was aghast at the thing that was looking back, because it wasn't me that I knew. And that's the hardest thing, really, is to look at that day in, day out. But you know there's recovery. And ironically, I was put on a trial, or I signed up to a trial suggested to me by Luke Hodgson, Dr. Luke Hodgson, the guy who I think actually put me into a coma. And we've since become sort of good friends, and he's very involved in the book, and still doing that bit of research called recovery. So they gave me a smartwatch, Fitbit in this case, to wear for a year, so they could monitor my recovery in my health journey. And that gave me a real will to show them that I was, as invested in getting better as they were invested in getting me better. And that started to help me look at that long list of what was wrong and not try and boil the ocean, smash it all in one day, but to break it down into sort of very, very small, doable things and celebrate those little wins. And that sounds crazy, but just being able to go from a sitting position to a standing position 5 times in a row, that was a good moment for me. So
I bet it was, considering where you were. I mean, that's a huge thing, isn't it? To go from being in a coma for that, and then suddenly so I think you have to celebrate those, even the small wins.
Yeah, you do find yourself coming up with these expressions like, you can get in your own way when you start remembering what you used to do. I used to be incredibly active, do all sorts of gym sessions and training sessions and jiu-jitsu and whatnot. And being exasperated with yourself because you just can't do anything. And literally, like I said, you have to start celebrating the small wins, because it starts creating that right way of thinking, right way to approach these tasks and break them down and just literally get on with it. And I think for me, discipline became the thing. Discipline came before the motivation or anything like that. It's just, get off your backside and do it.
Yeah. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. I just want to just go back to I suppose there's two things. The moment you woke up from your coma, realizing you've been out for so long, gone from March through to May, which is a weird thing in itself. Must be, I don't know how you deal with that. And also, what happened? Were you aware of anything from dreams or any sensations in that sort of 29 days?
Yeah, I tried to make sense of that in the book and by speaking to other people that have been in comas or experienced that situation. And you're very aware of energy, of beings. And I don't mean I just mean other people who are probably working on you or well. And I believe where I started to have incredibly vivid dreams was a combination of the bed that I was on. So the beds they use in ICU are incredibly impressive pieces of kit and very expensive, but they constantly move. So they're moving your body all the time so that you don't get any bed sores. So they raise, they lower, they move, they heat, they cool. So you're constantly moving. And I think as they move you from being fully sedated to less sedated, you may get a sensation that you're coming out of a deep slumber, and you may snatch an image of something, which then just spurs your brain into creating a reality. So I have several realities that my brain had created, which are absolutely crazy in some senses, the sort of dreams I had. But for me, they were real. They kind of happened a bit like you might have gone for a walk yesterday with your dog or something, that you did that. In my head, I did all these things. So another thing to deal with when you come round and you start making sense of it is that was all, they were all dreams. And what was really happening, I wasn't in some ski lodge or some mountain in Wales. I was in a bed in Worthing in ICU, bed number 1. So yeah, that was very hard to deal with. But yeah, you're definitely aware of the fact that you're in trouble. You should be where you are, and you have that constant feeling of, oh, I'm in the wrong place here. I need to get out of here. I need to go. And I think that's just the will and your determination to push against a disease or an illness, manifesting itself in this sort of sensation of pushing on, always going towards the light. That was what it was like for me anyway.
Wow, incredible. And when you woke up, that weird feeling of I've just missed or lost that time, was that hard to come to terms with? That
incredibly, yeah, because I didn't believe anybody. They were sitting there telling me, you've done incredibly well, and I'm thinking, I've only been here 2 days. What are you talking about? But so the denial went on for, it felt like weeks of what I'd been through. But it's not until you sit and talk to some of these experts, my wife, that I realized, what I'd been through, what I'd put them through. Made a massive fuss out of this illness. But it's hard to deal with when you think one thing and then someone's saying, no, you've been fighting for your life in this bed and we've been working on you for 29 days. And how do you deal with that? It took a long time to deal with that, which is why I wanted to do something about that, about the enormity of the thank you. Didn't seem to sort of just stand on a step and clap and thanks very much. I wanted to stay involved and invested in the NHS and the charity and the trust behind it, because there's so much good work they do that needs to be shone a light on, and these people need to be championed, and that's eventually that's the way that I found I could give back. And obviously eventually it came to the book, writing the book. It took me a while to get to that stage of publishing it, because you do come across this syndrome that lives within all of us, the old imposter syndrome, where I've kind of written a big chunk of it and thought, no one's going to want to read that, and left it for a year, but encouraged through some friends of mine to really give it a different approach, which was to get more people involved in the book. So it's not just me talking about me being asleep for 29 days and recovering, it is 7 to 10 different people in the book giving their view of that entire situation and how they dealt with it. And it was incredibly hard for so many of them, but it gives a fantastic, I think, insight into that world, that high pressure world, how slick it is, how well it works. So yeah, I do hope that people enjoy it and see it for that.
Fantastic. And just on the recovery side, I'd like to just explore probably more the mental side of things, because I think obviously there's a physical thing because you lost a lot of weight and need to regain all your muscle mass and everything else. Just the mental things that were going on and some of the struggles you had mentally, and perhaps how you dealt with that. It might be more retrospectively and on reflection how you dealt with it, but at the moment, it must have been some real tough ones. I've just lost 29 days of my life, through to I used to be able to do this and now I can't. And so how did you deal with those scenarios from a mental point of view? Because I think sometimes that has the greatest impact on us, doesn't it?
It does. I think personally for me, Julian, I was trying not to think about those facts too much. So I just wanted to sort of start doing. So when I was able to walk unaided, I would just try and get up and walk around our garden and get in nature. I was lucky, if you remember back in 2020 in May, June, July, the weather was glorious. So the restorative power of the sun and being out in nature helped me a lot. But never too far away is the fear of falling over or just not being able to drink a drink quickly because I developed some weird swallowing trauma. I don't know what that was about. So I had to literally work with they're called SALT therapists, so speech and language therapy, but it also deals with this whole area of your throat and your mouth and everything. So there was a lot of learning going on. So I tried to just apply myself to focusing on that learning. I think I found if I sat in a chair and started to reflect too much, then you get this overwhelming sense of, it's hard to say if it's anxiety or if it's stress or, but I was able to just start turning that around on its head and being thankful for the fact that this huge team had worked on me and many others to see me through the other side. And I made a decision fairly early on that I wasn't going to do any pity or sort of feeling sorry for myself. It was just like, I need to get back to where I was. But made some crucial sort of promises, I think, to myself along the way that I wasn't going to do as much running around in such a hurry to get business and do business and, go overseas and whatnot. So, during that recovery period, the company I worked for, they were really good to me and they kept paying me. But I think it was very evident to them when I could eventually start talking, get my voice back, that I wasn't going to be able to go back and do for them what I had been doing for them. So, we reached a compromise, which is kind of what I knew I wanted. I wanted to just take stock of that whole experience and to myself, well, you got a once in a lifetime chance, not the best circumstances to receive that chance, but to review how to go forward and what would I do differently and how would I do that differently. And, for me, you're never going to forget about something like that happened. I mean, I've got visible scars as well as the mental scars of going through that experience. And it does make you question, why are you worrying about this situation? And, when I say this situation, everybody in business and in life will have, projects, people, stuff that is starting to worry them. And whenever I would get worried, I would always go back to that task-orientated approach and think, right, what can I deal with right now in this next hour? And I'd start to do that. And by doing that, I would then be doing it. I'd be getting on with those tasks I'd broken down, and I'd start to feel good about those tasks, whether that was going for a walk around the garden, sitting to stand, or, putting a stretchy band around my ankles and starting to do one of many, seemingly hundreds of exercises given to me by the respiratory physios at Worthing. They're all amazing. That, you hear a lot of stuff about the NHS, but they were ever present. Specifically in that mental health, I got phoned a lot by the mental health team and had a few sessions sort of just to talk through. I quickly realised that my approach, I believe, was working quite well. Just sort of keep things simple and not to worry. I know it sounds like a very trite thing to say, but to literally make
and it sometimes takes stuff like that, unfortunately, to almost put that stop in our lives. And did it seems like it's created an inflection point in your life where you've now reassessed and you're doing things differently.
Very differently, and I would say thinking differently. I've been involved in the business I do for a good 30 years plus. I've got a good strong network, and when I was getting to the point of being well enough again, and I got to that stage where I basically had a year off or a year out, and then that sort of fairy tale's ending. You've got to get back on the bandwagon and start generating fees again. I was approached and looked at other opportunities to go into a company at a director level or get involved in a board, but I just didn't fancy that sort of that again, because we all know what boardrooms are like, Julian. The problems are all quite similar. How much money we're making, how much money we're not making, staffing issues, So I favour the sort of startup entrepreneurial approach. So I set a business up. It's gone well, going well. We've got a team in the UK, team in Mauritius. And I didn't want to get a big swanky office. I didn't want to do all that commuting. So everything is done virtually. We've got some good clients that allow us to go and work on their sites and their premises when we do meetings, because most of the meetings we do are with them. So we may as well use their premises. So that, that leaner approach to business has worked really well for us. And I'm sure other companies have taken that approach too after COVID and after I think, companies are still struggling, aren't they, to sort of understand what their culture is, and do they need to bring everyone into the office to have a culture, or is it more about trusting people to just get the tasks done? And obviously, you and I are meeting in this media. We may have met face to face in a different, life. But I think it works. I think it works really well using technology.
Yeah, and it's the world's certainly changed massively since COVID. I think in every sort of context, and I think there is some challenges to businesses how they do business and work, and there's merits for both in person and obviously online and everything else. And it's all about, for me, is that intentionality of keeping that connection somehow with those people, however you do that in both those contexts. Excuse me. When you look back at some of your stuff you went through, whether from walking or standing up 5 times in the very early days to doing all the other stuff and celebrating wins, is there any particular, I suppose, learnings or strategy thing actually that's really helped me, and I use that now still when I get some challenges, because I'm sure you still get challenges. You're not challenge free just because you've been through a big challenge and adversity. You still get stuff that hit you in your business or in your personal life. Is there any particular thing that actually, this is what I do now and it really helps me, and it might help some leaders who are listening to this episode right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that application, if you like, of discipline. So I made a silly pact to sort of get up every day before 6 a.m, no matter the weather, when I was able to do that. And, we've got dogs. So I wanted to just take some time for me every day in the morning. I get up before 6 every day. I go out for a walk with the dogs, and I literally sort of just practice in my head as I'm walking. bit of gratitude, but literally, what am I going to get today? What's a realistic goal for today, or goals for today? And it feels good to have gone outside and done something for me. No phone, just me and the dogs and the countryside, and the wind and the rain and the sun. Really depends on what time of year we're doing it. And applying that throughout the day, really, just keeping in mind that yes, some days will be absolutely stacked and some days won't be, but you bear in mind the list of things you're going to achieve, and like I said, not worrying. It's only what can I actually affect in this day that I've set myself to do. And if there's stuff that's out of your control, then it's out of your control. If it's in your control and you can affect it, then sure, then you can think, how am I going to affect that? What actions I'm going to take to get the result I want, or that we want as a collective. But if it's out of your control and you're waiting for someone else to do something, or whatever it might be, then don't worry about it. It's nothing you can control. So I try and steer clear of that kind of drama. And I guess practicing that day in, day out, it's become a habit. So I habitually do that. I literally look at the day, I make a plan for the day. And as you know, Julian, things do happen, and you do have to be reactive, and you do have to change course and whatnot. But again, if it's something that gets thrown up, you look at it with that same lens of, right, okay, what can I control in this situation? What do I need to create? What do I need to, sorry, can't help you with that. And just move on. So, when you do it day in, day out, it doesn't feel like it's a special recipe for success, but sometimes just simplifying, it does make you more efficient. It does make you resilient. It does make you, get used to delivering and getting the results that you want, that you're seeking. So yeah, I do think the mental arithmetics or the mental aerobics, if you like, at the start of a day really, really help me. And if you don't do that, it's a bit like some army dude talking about the first thing you do in the day is make your bed. Before you do anything, you make your bed, so that if you had a really crappy day, well, you come back to a lovely made bed. For me, the mental aerobics, if you like, in the morning, walk over that cup of coffee, whatever it may be, is a great way to set up for the day. And if you don't do that, it's surprising what can ambush you, or what you can let ambush you because you haven't sort of. So I'm a big one for that.
Yeah, and I think it sounds boring, doesn't it? It's called discipline, and it's a daily habit. And I think we've got to find, each of us, we all have different things we do, but it's having a routine or something that will set you up for the day mentally, get you in a good place. A little bit of, going for a walk in the countryside. When there's blue sky, it increases your serotonin, makes you feel good, and being fresh air is good for you. Walking's good, and moving around's good. It's all those things, and gives you time to think. And also, when you're with your dog, you probably get a bit more in the moment because you're not thinking about other stuff. And I think it's finding what that might be for each one of us. I think it doesn't have to be 5 a.m. club, all that sort of stuff.
No,
it's just finding what works for you, and that could be whatever it is in a work context or in your personal life. It's applying that routine daily, isn't it?
Definitely, and putting this thing in neutral sometimes, by doing something like exercise or the walk. I mean, exercise is a huge part of my life. It's so important to me. It got me out of the doldrums of recovery. And I remember the physio saying, "Oh, you should try the couch to 5K." And I tried the couch to 5K with the headphones on. You walk for a minute and try and run for a minute and so on. I absolutely hate running. I'm not very good at it, but cycling I can do. I've been cycling for so many years. So I started cycling. I would say that cycling really saved me and sort of expedited the whole process from being told that it's going to take you 18 months to recover. Now, human beings, when you say something like that to somebody, some people do take it literally and think, "Oh, well, that's me then for 18 months. It's going to take me a while to recover." Whereas, I think you and I and a lot of the audience might be more analytical and think, no. That's not going to take me 18 months to recover. And thankfully, getting back on that bike Some of the muscle memory was there. I ramped up pretty quickly, and that I started to get back to me again very, very quickly. And that's where the challenge came about, to think about doing a big ride and making some money for the charity. But like I said, doing something other than thinking about what you've got to do is a great way of taking your mind totally out of the game, whether it's half an hour Pilates or 45 minutes in the gym, bit of cross training, bit of weights, just again discipline and just go do it. Yeah. And I think there's a guy I really like, I think it's Billy Billingham, one of the sort of ex-SAS guys.
Oh yeah.
And his motto is, always a little further, no excuses. And I love that, because it's so simple, because we do make excuses as human beings. If it's cold outside and the duvet is nice and warm, you think, oh no, maybe I won't do that today. But no excuses, get on and do it.
No, and I think that's important. And did the cycling that you did, and just the whole stuff that you've done for the charity, that sense of purpose help you? Because I think purpose is quite important, isn't it? It can drive us, it can push us, it can motivate us, and also that proving ourselves. I remember I had a motorbike accident when I was 16.
Yeah.
And I smashed up my kneecap and they took it out. And so they told me, my physio told me that you won't be able to probably run because you won't be able to bend it enough. It's bend it more than 90 degrees to run. And I went, no, I'm not having that. And so I was determined I can't bend it all the way back, but I was determined to be able to do it so I could run. And so sometimes, you get told you can't do that. Well, I'm going to try, if I can do that, helpful. But do you think purpose played a role as well within the cycling and in your recovery, as well as like the charity stuff?
Yeah, most definitely. I think I probably describe myself as pretty stubborn, and once I get something in my mind, I want to do it and try and achieve it. So I was cycling with a friend of mine who was helping me recover, and he'd go out with me a lot, and was just commenting on you're looking a lot better. It's good to see you here, not just here, but physically, mentally present here. And it was he and I that hatched a plan of, well, let's do this ride for charity. So it was, I think they call it a BHAG, don't they? A big hairy ass goal.
Yeah.
Cycling the South Downs Way in a day. So we agreed we were going to do it. We told everybody about it. So that started to make us instantly accountable for doing it.
Yeah.
We picked a day, and the day was fairly sort of momentous for me. It was a year to the date that I was put into a coma. I managed to cycle that.
So only a year later.
Only a year later, yeah.
Wow.
So defying not the odds, but defying the advice or what I was told. A bit like yourself, you won't be able to run. I had very obvious, I think, scarring on the lungs is how I would describe it. So my capacity in my lungs, it wasn't what it used to be. So it got pretty hammered during that fight. But nonetheless, it's like an old diesel engine. Once it gets going, I can keep going. So stamina's there. We started training. We would go, get 25 miles, 30 miles, 45 miles, up to 75 miles. And we thought, if we train for 75 miles, the 106 that you do on the day, it's a bit like training for a marathon, isn't it? I've heard that you don't always train those full 26 miles. You'll get somewhere there, and just let adrenaline and perseverance, resilience, all those wonderful words get you there. Doing it on that date was quite symbolic for me, and I was very well supported by my mates that did it with me. So it was fantastic to have done it.
Fantastic. That's amazing. It's a challenge, massive challenge anyway, regardless of your background. But it's huge.
Yeah, lots of ups and lots of downs in many ways. So it kind of echoed.
But there was, the
whole journey. Yeah, so it's 13,000 feet, I think, of climbs and obvious descents, and then so many gates on that South Downs Way. There's just you're stopping and starting for gates.
Did you ever doubt yourself on the day at any point? Think, I don't think I can do this. Actually, I got to 80 miles. I think this is too hard.
Yeah, you get very sore. You just get like a buildup of lactic acid, and your bum is definitely complaining about the whole thing. But no, I mean, we were so lucky with the weather. The weather was fantastic in that March. So we had a beautiful day, and the halfway point in Storrington, we were met by the ITV guy who was filming the whole thing. There was the guys from the charity who were there with their flags and whatnot. But there was also a whole bunch of nurses that they'd met me, but I'd never met them. But they were there. So you know, when you're doing that sort of thing, you feel like you're in a calorie deficit because you're just cycling and drinking a drink or whatever. But yeah, all I wanted to do when I got to sort of 55 miles in was to sort of stuff my face with, you know, protein. But I stopped to have a chat with these nurses who'd made the journey, especially to sort of say hi and to cheer me on. So it was wonderful to meet them and to have a chat with them and to speak to them and thank them. Grab some food, throw it down my throat, and then, you know, I was being urged to get a move on because we had to get the next 6 hours done to get to Eastbourne before it got too dark. So yeah, we set off in the dark, and we got to Eastbourne just as it was sort of getting dusky. But it was good to have done it, and I do remember myself and Tom, the guy I did it with, we stopped off at an old fish and chip shop in a village called Sterning, and just sat on the bonnet of the car eating fish and chips, just sort of, you know, reminiscing over the journey to have got to that point, to have done it. And it definitely feels great to have done it. And I suppose, like anything in business where, you know, you've made a plan, you've done all the sort of rehearsals to have then done it, whether that's you know, setting up a successful business, floating a business, merging a business, acquiring a business. There's always a lot of strain and stress. To have done it and thought, yeah, that felt good. I'll store that in the happy bank and on to the next one.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. And well done. And just a year later from your being in a coma, which is incredible. And just one sort of, I suppose, final question, really. Yeah. For those who are listening, who may be facing in their business some quite challenges. It might not be health adversity, but certainly a challenge in business. And I know that, you know, in the reality of sometimes it's not always the big thing in life, but that's what we're facing sometimes, and it'll be quite challenging. What advice would you give them in terms of how they may go about that or take perspective on that?
Yeah, you nailed it there. Perspective. You know, your perception and your perspective of something will be, you know, what you're living. And I would always seek to get advice from a colleague, from a friend, maybe someone you don't even know that, you know, it does what you do, Julian. You know, they're a business coach. To get what you're looking at, to get a different lens perspective of that can sometimes be monumental. Absolutely monumental. It certainly helped me when I was trying to work out what I did next. I spoke to a good friend of mine and who said, why don't you try this, or why don't you do that, or why don't you look at it and do it this way? You get a whole new set of data on something that you're already looking at, but you just didn't see it that way. So I think, you know, bringing in expert advice, not necessarily from a friend, because, you know, they're your friend, but if it's someone who's got great life or business experience, and it may cost you £1,000 or it may cost you whatever, but it's so worth it to get that different perspective of a situation. It can give you a real spur to action.
Excellent. And I think it's important to have people input into our lives, because we're not meant to do life on our own anyway. So we need a community. You did your cycle with that guy who supported you, and probably a team of people that were helping you and encouraging you. And I think we all need that. Yeah, no, that's good advice. If people want to connect with you, get in touch with you, buy the book, how might they do that, Laurence?
They can find me on LinkedIn, but more importantly, there is a website called bednumber1.com, and you can connect with me there. They can buy the book there. It's definitely out in print now. It's also on Amazon as well, so they can get an ebook on Amazon or the book on Amazon. But yeah, if they go to bednumber1.com. There's a contact me page if they want to drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to speak to anybody about the experiences and how it may help people. I mean, I've gone on to do a lot of work with the NHS around, you mentioned it earlier on, being a research champion, which is just championing research and helping the NHS understand how, patients and the public can get further involved or more involved with helping other patients, recover and stay recovered, stay fitter, stay well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time, Laurence. Lovely hearing your story. It's inspiring, and I'm sure people have taken some nuggets that can help them in their own life, whether it's a health issue or a business issue. They work. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you.
My